My mother and I have always had very different communication styles. While I could never win at a poker game, I'm not sure my mother could ever lose. She's so brilliant at hiding her emotions that when I was a young child, I didn't realize she had feelings for me to hurt. This untrue assumption led to exploitation. My mother was my emotional punching bag, enduring hysterical weeping fits, angry outbursts, obnoxious jokes, and probing questions with a stately stoicism, usually reserved for competitive endurance contests. Being matter-of-fact, practical, and possessing a heart housed carefully in her chest and not dangling off her sleeve, my mother and I frequently had communication snafus, sometimes the consequences of which lingered on for years. For instance, my brothers and I were constantly in the throes of war. I was not above launching a word grenade or two that would be sure to provoke shoves, hair pulling, and pummeling. I prized my silver tongue and chose not to curb it. The satisfaction of knowing I could create chaos overshadowed how much I despised being hit. And of course, once I was in the fray, I stopped talking and started throwing. My mother's reaction to behavior she disliked was to ignore it. And once we'd had it out, she'd talk calmly to us. And I was always in the wrong. For some reason, maybe it because I was the oldest or the only girl, O seed of Eve, it was always my fault every time. If I made fun of my brother and set him off, it was my fault. But if he made me angry and I hit first, also my fault. So for years, I believed my mom had it in for me. She was holding me to some kind of impossible standard, and I resented it. Finally, when I reached an age where I was cognizant enough to have a conversation with her about why she treated me like this, she dropped this little nugget. She was telling my brother the exact same thing. It was not her intention to make me believe that I was solely responsible for every altercation, but she was trying to make me aware that I held some of the reins and had some measure of control in how things erupted. I could shut my mouth, I could walk away, and so could he. She did not want me to worry about how she was disciplining my siblings. She wanted me to focus inward. But somehow that message flew right past me. And then there was the time my mother was attempting to teach me how to crochet. She is a brilliant seamstress, an obsessed knitter, and highly competent in the fiber arts. Every time I go near a sewing machine, it commits suicide. I once knit half a bib because she cast on for me. This crocheting business was not going any better. It was a simple chain. My mom attempted to offer some encouragement, an inspirational tale of beating the odds. But what I heard was, Helen Keller was blind and deaf, and she could crochet. Why can't you? Guess what I never learned to do? She might not have passed down her talent for handicrafts, but there are things that we have in common. We are both performers and writers. When she saw that the gift began to manifest itself in me, she got right to work. She will always be my coach, editor, and biggest fan. When I show her my writing, she has learned that I need praise first and a red pen second. And she has also learned to trust that rusty beginnings will eventually bloom into something she can be proud of. But I will take my sweet time getting there. And I've learned that when she critiques me, it's out of love. Not just her love for me, but her love for the art form. In the 6th grade, I joined the speech team. My category was dramatic interpretation. It was the morning of the big meet, the one that decided who would go to the city meet in a few weeks. My mom and I sat together over bowls of soggy grape nuts while she listened to me stumble horribly over my piece, which was supposed to be memorized. In her ever stoic fashion, she calmly corrected me. And I wasn't mortified or crying like I might sometimes be. In fact, I barely acted like I cared at all. Inwardly, she was terrified. I was terrible. She knew it. And perhaps a piece of her felt like it would be her failing in front of the judges. And she couldn't figure out why I didn't care. Normally, I would be crying, but my whole attitude could be summed up in the word shrug. The moment of truth arrived that night. I had performed my piece in front of the judges, and my mother sat waiting expectantly in the cafeteria on the hard plastic chairs designed for childish bottoms. No one could possibly know the amount of anxiety she had building up inside of her. This is a woman who once rode in a car for 2 hours while her gallbladder self-destructed, and she told no one. She wasn't in the room when I did my piece. All she knew was that morning over breakfast, I had flunked. It was time. The categories were announced. Then, second place. They called my name. In that moment, my mother's face erupted. It was unbelievable. She was weeping and covering her red face with her hands. She was in hysterics, and people were staring. It was only second place, lady. Settle down. I got my red ribbon, and I hugged my mother, who clutched me to her breast, still sobbing and wiping tears. There was no way anyone else could possibly understand except for me. I had a language, and she was speaking it. The next week was the city meet, and my mother couldn't come this time. No one from my family was there to sit expectantly and watch the stage full of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders from all around Evansville, waiting for my name to be called. The tensions mounted as the ribbons were presented. 8th through 2nd place, and still my name was not called. My mother was not there, but I cried as they handed me my blue ribbon. Someone joked it was good she wasn't there, or she would have flooded the place. But I knew that wasn't true. Her outburst was a one-time, only never to be seen again event. I am grateful I witnessed it. I am glad it was for me. And all of my performances henceforth are for her.